Bio interview with Iya Khalil, Vice President and Head of Data, AI, and Genome Sciences at Merck. And we're going to be talking a little bit about her role in AI and just generally what we saw and heard at Bio, if we can think back that far. So thank you so much for joining me, Iya.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So just to start out, if folks aren't familiar, what do you do at Merck, and what's your head of data, AI, and genome sciences? It's a lot. What all does that entail?
Yeah. So at Merck, I'm really focused on trying to understand fundamentally complex human disease biology and what that means in terms of the ability for us to predict who's going to respond to our treatments and who isn't going to respond to our treatments. And the overarching goal is by providing that depth of understanding so that we can come up with better targets. What are the things in the human body and biology we need to target with our drugs that will lead to the best efficacy and outcome for the patient, and for which patients that we will fundamentally be able to produce better drugs and getting those drugs to our patients much, much faster. And so I leverage AI and data and wet lab capabilities to get to that understanding, to get to those capabilities and find those targets and come up with hypotheses around the right drug right for the right patient at the right time.
I love that because it really speaks to what folks are always saying about AI. It's a tool. You should
Yeah,
be thinking about the goal and the end point, not the tool and the process. So not just having AI in your title, but also genome sciences. What are we using the AI for, right?
that's right. Yeah. Um, and people sort of use AI like it's a blanket term, a blanket set of methodologies that applies to everything. But we have to be really thoughtful about where we're using the AI and how to use the AI for when we're thinking about what AI can do for drug discovery and development. And so we have to think about how do we leverage this capability to come up with better targets? How can we leverage this capability to come up with and design better molecules? How can we leverage this capability to get to that precision treatment where we understand what are the biomarkers that predict which patients will respond to which drug? And if you just think about these three areas, the AI you design for the first one will be different than the one for the second and the third. And they each require their own data sets, their own set of experts and specialists to leverage the AI to apply it in those areas and get to the goal of finding better targets that are more meaningful, that work better, finding better molecules that are safer, and getting our drugs to those who are more likely to benefit and respond to that drug.
You sort of mentioned that it's not one strategy, it's several strategies to kind of address each of those areas. But how would you kind of characterize Merck's general approach around AI, maybe compared to what you hear from competitors, or how do you kind of what's your, I guess, unifying sort of vision of how you're going to employ this technology?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, it really does start with what is our goal and what is our mission. And we are in a place now in history where we've looked at data, and the data tells us that it takes 12 to 15 years to get a successful drug to market, and we know we can do better. In fact, we think we can get it down to 5 to 7 years, and with a lot less cost, and also better drugs for the patient itself. So our overarching strategy is really about how do we leverage our scientific capabilities and our tools and our technologies in the discovery process to get to better molecules for our patients much, much faster. And so to do that, we then believe in both building our own AI, leveraging the AI capabilities and tools that are out there, and then integrating the AI with data and experiments so that it's not just AI in its own, but it's AI with the data and experiments in what we call an active learning loop, where you generate the data sets that you need to answer the specific scientific questions that can drive the value and getting to that value proposition to the patient, building and leveraging the best in class AI models, a lot of them based on deep learning approaches and transformer based models, and then generating predictions, testing those, and then going back again and having that continuous feedback loop, this active learning feedback loop, where the AI over time gets better and smarter. We call these our flywheel engines. And we're deploying flywheel engines in the earliest phase of discovering what the right targets are, the right biology is, all the way to how we design the molecules, to how we discover who those drugs are going to work best for. And it includes the wet lab data that we generate on our disease patients and disease samples, the wet lab data coming from our historical data of having tested many, many different molecules. So we can take that historical data and learn from it and generate new data to help us design better molecules. And then leveraging data coming from our own trials. Because once we test a drug in our early trials in phase 1 and 2, that's an opportunity to learn about that drug and what it's doing and who it can best work for. And so this concept of a flywheel engine really extends across our workflows, across the continuum of discovery through to early development. And it's to have and embed in what we do a learning system, right, where we're continuously learning from data and getting better and smarter at each stage of the drug discovery and development process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because AI is going to evolve. If you're not making it get better, then it's going to get worse, right? It's going to either what are they, overfit or
Yeah.
hallucinate. So
Yeah.
kind of this emphasis on making sure that your models are always not only always being trained, but also always being checked against reality, right?
Right. Checked against reality. And
So
and the way that we oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and we envision that these models, it's not the AI in its own, right? So the AI needs to learn and it needs to learn from data, but the AI is helping our scientists, come up with and be able to generate better and better hypotheses along every step of the way. Our scientists are heavily involved in building these models, training these models, using these models, but they are part of, it's the co-pilot to the scientists to help them get to better and deeper insights.
Yeah. So you were at Bio, you were at a special, I think it was day one or day two session all about AI, and
Yeah.
there were, I think, many panels. You were on one of them. It was great stuff. What did you learn in working, speaking with some of your colleagues, learning from other folks in other parts of the industry? Any insights you walked away from the conference with about AI?
Yeah, it was really great to present at Bio and also to be on a all-star panel with female leaders in the space of AI. That was just fantastic and inspiring. And it was a combination of folks talking about how they were leveraging AI both in biotech as well as in pharmaceuticals and the pharma space. And it's clear that AI has landed in our space. It's landed both in biotech and pharma. And it's not just about the tech bio approach. For me, it's also the tech biopharma approach, right? We're a pharmaceutical company and we have to get end to end. We have to get our drugs to the patient and figure out a way to develop and discover the best drugs. And so the power of AI to do that really came through. And the other thing that came through is that we talk about AI in different ways, and it's important to be clear about how we're using AI to get to better and faster and better for the patient. And there's two ways. One is sort of more around efficiencies and how do you make just the process more efficient because you've enabling the way you design your trials better because you've incorporated all the corpus of historical clinical trial data and used an AI and an LLM way to learn from that, and that gives you that efficiency. But the other that really impressed upon me is the power of AI to help us solve difficult scientific problems, right? When we talk about complex human biology, it's 20,000 plus genes in the human genome. Every one of those genes expresses itself differently in every cell type and organ type in the body. And we have to be able to tackle and unravel that complexity. And for the first time, we now have the tools to do it. We have the tools to do it experimentally because we can go in and apply tools like CRISPR technology and edit every gene in a variety of cell types and measure what the consequences of that is molecularly across all those cell types. And we have the AI and machine learning that can help us learn the best representation of that biology, capture it in some way in silico so that we can go on the computer and in silico probe these models and ask questions about what the best targets are, what the best pathways are. To help us get there, we've built our own foundation model that's learned across these data sets. It's an AI foundation model, just like you might build an AI foundation model for language, letters and words and sentences and paragraphs. We built it for biology and the expression of that biology. And back to that active learning, we're embedding it in an active learning framework, a flywheel, to help us come up with and discover better biology.
That's really interesting. So that really speaks to some of the opportunities in the space that are maybe becoming clearer as the technology advances. Um, did you talk at all about kind of what some of the challenges are remaining in this space, and how possibly at a gathering like this, folks can come together to try to collaborate on overcoming them?
Yeah. So a big challenge that kept coming up consistently at Bio, at our panel, and I think I heard it throughout the day, was all about data, right? So AIML needs data, it needs it to learn, it needs it to get better, and so it's the question of how do we get the best data that we can, and at the scale that we need it to come up with the most relevant predictions that will have an impact on the drugs that we discover. And I see that as an opportunity because what we have done is invest in collaborations that where we can get really good high quality patient data. We've invested in collecting data from our own trials so that we can have that be part of our active learning flywheel loop and how we learn from patient data itself, and in experimental systems that can collect data at scale. And so we have the opportunity now to collect the data that we need to get to models that can truly transform what we're able to learn and how we're able to design our molecules. And that's just tremendous, and it's really really exciting. And I'm just super excited to be at Merck, where we have made these commitments and these investments and empowered our scientists to do this.
What do you think, as we kind of close up here? What are some of the things that you're working on that you're most excited about now? Anything you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about trying to get to that next level of understanding in disease biology, where we have and we know for a lot of our diseases, current standard of care therapies don't work. You can take an example like immunology, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. And for some of the patients, the therapies that are out there will show an effect, but for a number of them, they don't. And a big part of it is the way that the disease manifests itself in those patients, and it drives them to poorer and poorer outcome. In this case, specifically, the poorer outcomes have to do with their gut essentially becoming more and more fibrotic. So I'm super excited about leveraging now the capabilities of understanding our genome, measuring it in tissue, measuring it in complex tissues, and really unraveling why those patients progress. And as a result of that, we're going to come up with better targets and better ways to treat those patients. And these are going to be novel targets. It's going to be biology that hasn't been uncovered. And normally it would take decades to uncover that biology. But through genetics, genomics, CRISPR technologies, AI and machine learning, and that active learning that I described, what could take years and years, we're aiming to get there in the next year or two and truly transform our pipeline with new therapies that we did not know about and that could have a tremendous impact on patient health.
Just saying, any final or closing thoughts before we wrap up?
So my final thought is, we should all be inspired about what's happening in our space, and we have now the tools and the capabilities to enable our scientists to discover the best drugs, and that's super inspiring. And I hope this inspires our field to move faster.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me, and I'm glad we were able to make this work after the show. Uh, yeah, hope we'll get a chance to talk again soon.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you, Jenna.